Okay, so it's the future of education in Sikkim with global inputs. So let's start right away. First question to Mr. Upadhaya. Oh, by the way, sorry. I would request the panelists from that end to here, to introduce themselves in 3 sentences.
Some issues in the South Asian.
From Jodo Gyan. My work involves curriculum development by working with children and also teachers supporting the resource bases.
My name is Kumar. I'm the founder and CEO of iShippo and HRDD Solutions. I'm a tech guy. So I think that's my second sentence. And third sentence is I've been hearing a lot about teachers and generally while growing up, a concept of teaching and which was I guess more rudimentary in that sense, very less technology and more of classroom based. So a lot of things I got to learn in the last 2 sessions, and probably if I can contribute to this, that will be great.
Hi, I'm Meeta Sengupta. You've heard a lot of who I am and what I do. EduVillage is an online conversation that I run on new and controversial issues, which is completely democratic, open to everybody to contribute to the conversation. Because I believe education belongs to us all. A few other campaigns that I run are Project Boarding, a school safety campaign, and Kala, which is communities as learning aids, part of the work that I do. I am a non-techie, that's my third sentence, but I'm a non-techie who thrives in a technical world. But I expect the techies to step up and make things easy for me.
I am GP Upadhaya. I am a civil servant. Currently, I am Additional Chief Secretary, Principal Secretary of Human Resource Development Department. And as you know, we are civil servants, so we are all journalists. We are not specialists. In the Department of Human Resource Development, I have been working for about 3 years now, a little more than 3 years. So I have learned a lot from this department, and I would try to answer the questions to the best of my abilities and experience.
Okay, you have a very eminent panel. 4 people, including me, from the IITs, 3 from the IIMs. And of course, there are Sikkimis also thrown in here and there. Okay, round 1. So we start with Mr. Upadhaya, who's the Additional Chief Secretary, and his inputs will be very, very useful for this panel. So can you give us a 5-minute summary on the state of school education in Sikkim? 5-minute summary. Your time starts now.
Okay, summary of school education I have been asked. I would like to give a summary of the entire education system from class 1 to class 12. So basically what is happening currently in Sikkim is that we are on a path of transforming the whole thing. The system that we inherited was a system which was a traditional system, like in any other state, with a lot of lethargy in the system and lack of training and lack of orientation of teachers, and the system was not very responsive to the current scenario, the present day needs of children. Because the present day need of children is to be very competitive, they should know about the global trends, and they should be very, very, aware of what is happening around the world. Now the teachers who have been teaching, they are very educated and good people, but the lack of training or lack of orientation was creeping in. And then we also found that the school principals, many of them were not regular principals. So because of that, a lot of indiscipline problems were there, and the leadership was not coming from the school principal. So what has happened is we have tried to reform on various counts, like the inputs to the teachers through training. Then we have been able to do the manpower management. We have been able to get regular principals in almost all the schools, and also given them a thorough input on leadership training so that they are able to lead the schools. We are also trying to accredit the schools with the Quality Council of India so that we come up to a particular benchmark. We have not been able to do it successfully till now because of various reasons. We have got a very good infrastructure which we are putting to maximum use. The teachers training has really taken off, especially at the primary level. We have done training in English and mathematics. And of course, this intervention of SCERT as a think tank of the department to provide us with the policy, options which we can adopt for a betterment of the education system. So SCERT has been revived, and SCERT has taken on the role of research and training both. Training, of course, they have been doing earlier also, but the research activity was lacking, so that they have taken it up. We have also tried to design our own textbooks in the primary sections, so that we are able to include our Sikkim's history as well as our own things a child should know. So that has also been done. And there has been a general, a kind of, dynamism that has come in the system. The schools have become very, very dynamic entities which are actually embarking upon various contemporary issues like organic farming, garbage disposal, making children more aware of the present day requirement of Sikkim and the world, and what they are likely to face in the world when they become, when they come into the job market or when they come into society as adults. So that has happened. So overall, I would sum up by saying that currently the system is poised for a takeoff after having received all these inputs, and with the help of the current lot of principals and teachers who are now looking forward and they're enthusiastic now, they are very, very keen to contribute, and involvement of parents also has happened to a great extent. The parent-teacher meetings have been started in all the schools. They have been told to interact with their children and take a stakeholding. So with this, we hope that we should be able to make the system responsive to the present day requirements.
Excellent. 3 minutes, 40 seconds. So, Meeta, next to you, see, given what you've heard from Mr. Upadhaya, and given what you've heard from conversations that since yesterday, what are the 3 things that you think need to be fixed in the school system? And why? Even if it means policy.
Thank you. Beautiful question. The one thing that I asked Raisa before the session was, could you tell us what the questions are before we come in here? And you puts us in the spot with 3 things. So the one thing that, and this is not necessarily a tech answer actually, the one thing that really needs to be fixed is the assessment system. Because sadly what happens is that our assessment system forces us into a very small range of learning. And when it forces us into a very small range of learning, I suddenly remembered the 3 minutes because that's what the assessment system does as well. 5 minutes. But that's what the assessment system does as well. Now we are given the job of preparing students for life. But in life, you don't always have a very critical time limit saying you have to answer this question in 3 minutes or 5 minutes. You don't answer questions all alone. In real life, when you are a teacher, you have a teacher mentor to go to. You have a senior person to go to. You have the equip circle that gets designed. In real life, we have support systems. So the one thing that I'd like to, and these are just 2 indicative things. So the first thing is the assessment system, which really needs to reflect the goals of education. What the goals of education are, again, we've had a few discussions on that, and many more discussions can be had. The second thing that needs to be fixed, in my view, is our ability to, and I'm again very happy to see so much being done here in Sikkim, is to improve our ability to listen. And this is our ability to listen as students, which improves performance directly. Listening skills are an important 21st century skill as well, and have been an important 0th century skill. Our ability to listen as teachers, again, text, subtext, body language, emotional listening, the whole range of listening. And our ability to listen as advisors, as policy makers, and so on and so forth, so that we can actually create a more empathetic set of solutions that actually work for what is required in that context and that situation. So the second thing was this. The third one that I would love to see is, it's actually a much smaller thing than the other 2, but I would love to see students engage in real life problems as they go along. Because there's so much energy, there's so many wonderful ideas. And as teachers, we have the patience to listen to silly ideas also. It's fun sometimes, it's a game, it's how you take it, how you approach it. So if students can engage with real life problems, maybe come up with solutions. And in the last 5 to 7 years of innovation competition history in all of India, students have genuinely come up with some incredible solutions, globally too and in India. So bringing student innovation, student ideas, and then helping them grow their ideas, teaches them how to grow other ideas in the future as well. So making them future ready probably can use this as a toolkit.
Thank you. Usha, children.
What is so difficult about making children learn? In your opinion, under what circumstances would they learn best? What do you think and what should be fixed? How can we measure progress?
Difficult for children to learn, I find that increasingly so. The curriculums which are made are often not well thought out enough and really based on the learning process. So very often teachers are faced with a curriculum which is not child appropriate, and but then they have to do. And so what they do, the teachers are forced to look for shortcut solutions to somehow fix it up. And because of that, then their whole focus becomes on finding the correct answer. And so in order to find the correct answer on which they be judged, so then they have to find something, and so this whole engagement with the correct answer of teachers rather than looking at the thinking process of children, I feel it's a byproduct of the fact that the curriculum is not maybe appropriate or well thought out. This is one. So I feel that one major thing will be really look at the curriculum, look at each one of the learning. Where does it come? What does it come? What is the basis? So I think that would be one factor. I could stop there. I didn't keep track.
No, don't worry, you have time. Yes, sir. So restated, what do you think we are doing right in Sikkim and what should we?
What we are doing right in Sikkim and what should be fixed?
I think a lot of things are happening very right in Sikkim, as I have been seeing, is the fact that there is really an engagement with children, with learning, and with looking at the whole problematic, and also this kind of what is happening here. And I think it's because of that in some of the schools where we are working, without talking about it, the principal and the teachers took the initiative of calling the parents in, engaging with it. But a lot of things happen at a system. There are enabling conditions which need to be put in at the system level, and when that is there, I think the people are quite ready, and that kind of sense of movement and urgency, I think that's something which is it's happening very right, and I hope that, like in the case of organic farming, here also maybe can lead by making this a kind of real engagement. I think that's one.
Yeah, and how can we measure progress?
Measuring progress, of course, which means that we need to know what are the kind of goals we are setting for ourselves. If we are going to setting up a goal of the fact that in any subject the children understand, engage, and are able to use. Because I think one thing is there, whatever are the other weaknesses, the learning outcomes at all levels is talking about the fact that it should be usable. Everybody feels quality means usable knowledge, and usable knowledge will have to be created to be even in the context of use, maybe not abstractly and then applied. So it can be once we are clear about what is the goal, then we will be able to measure the progress. And I would say that if there is a lot of assessments and a lot of ranking and other things might be useful. I don't know, but I think if there is some kind of a very clearly identified goal which motivates and fires everybody and brings people together, a joint shared purpose, shared intentionality, And that can be the carrier on which many of the other things can happen, which we are talking about. I think so. What would be that thing in education? Easily understandable, clearly defined, and motivated so that people can do it.
Thank you. Vivek, I think now we move to the technology side. Okay. Do you see ICT and other tech tools that are emerging, replacing the teacher in part? Can you give us one good example globally where this has been successful?
Thank you. And thank you for asking the most provocative question, friend, on whether technology can replace teachers. Maybe I'll start with saying that this idea of technology use is not something new that we have started only in the last decade. The first mention of personalized learning, one-to-one learning, and how do we impact one-to-one learning started in 1961 by an architect in US, Richard Fuller. In 1968, we had the first non-functional model of a personal computer, which was called the Dynamo, that was imagined by a programmer known as Alan Kay in 1968. And over the last 50 years, these ideas have not seen replacing the teachers. So the first thing which is very clear in every practitioner's mind here is technology is not something which is ever going to replace the teacher, but what it is going to do, it is only going to enable the interactions in the classrooms such that the teacher can engage in more higher order teaching, which is to say that how do you enhance the value of the teacher, and quoting a statement from Meeta's blog, how do you reduce the tyranny of the classroom? And this is about introducing personalization with the help of technology, which can enrich the existing curriculum, which can enrich the existing content, and free up the teacher to actually focus on activities which are more fun, which are probably discussion, probably discovery together with students and all of it. So this whole notion of expecting that technology would ever be able to replace teachers, I think is fundamentally flawed. It's all about how do we utilize technology in the right ways to enable various processes in the value chain of education delivery, starting from information management, starting from systems management, to the management of teachers and students' databases, to probably enabling better delivery in the classrooms, and then enabling assessments and certification systems. I think that's the lens with which we should look at technology, instead of starting with whether or not we can replace learning with technology itself.
Yeah. One global
Example?
So there are attempts which have been made in various parts of the world to say that can we introduce technology in the classrooms to replace teachers, and I don't think it has worked anywhere directly in terms of replacing it. There have been models of flipped classrooms which have been tested. We do not have enough evaluations at this point of time to say that technology has really worked. By 2016, we had a total of only 299 systematic evaluations done on utilization of technology in classrooms to say whether or not it impacts learning outcomes. So the examples which have been successful out of these 299 are all about where you have improved certain learning outcomes using technology as an enabler. So it might be that part of the classroom sessions were driven through a tablet which could probably give you localized content, and then the teacher is discussing that. It could have improved some sort of systemic efficiencies, but any of the flipped classroom models where you say that you have replaced the entire training to tablet-based training, I do not know of an evaluation which has said that it has really improved learning outcomes.
Thank you. So we come now to Karma, who's a homegrown entrepreneur, very successful at that. So, Karma, your upbringing, I think your education was in Pakyong. Tell us what was good in your education and what was not so good, and what can be fixed.
Thanks, sir. Initially, I guess when I just landed up and I couldn't figure this machine out, this speaking thing, microphone, right? So you almost have got confused because there is a place here, a green label, I guess, in front of all your mics is there. What I did was, there were buttons on the top, right on the top, and I kept pressing channel and it didn't work. So much for tech, and how tech grows. So what I did was, so I took that opportunity, and right now I took his pen and I wrote press here, on both of these. So the next guy doesn't make the same mistake. You get what I'm saying? So you observe, you learn, and probably that's how it goes. Now, for example, in the context of what Sir is asking me in terms of schooling, in Sikkim, especially in Pakyong and stuff like that, in those days, sir, it was rough, I guess people in that generation kind of know, because in today's day and time, like for example, many of the things that probably teachers are not supposed to do, the teachers would do with impunity. Like, and kids would be proud. They would come back with black and blue on their buttons and say, see, I got 10, you got only 5, that kind of thing. So, as kids, our providers are. And we probably still, having said that, I think we were from the golden generation, so to speak, before all the tech started becoming very pervasive. And today you have to treat a small kid. I treat my child is just 5 years old as an adult. So so much for parenting, So you have to do that, and basically even son encourages that because he's done that same with his son, and you treat them like friends. So I guess from the time that we were there versus what it is now is two different things. So our teachers probably never went to a seminar like this, and that is probably the sea change. Now, having said that, so this is the present, right? We are here for the present. What is the future? What is the future of education? What is the future of learning? Now that is interesting because whether we like it or not, currently in your hands are the biggest responsibility, because you probably are educating kids who will be the first interplanetary species ever. It is a big ask, right? Today we don't think about it, but in another maybe 10 to 15 years, you will start seeing the first signs of the first Mars generation. There will be people who will be going, there are entrepreneurs who are building a business around it. And as initially, if anybody builds a business around something, it will succeed because somebody is taking a risk and they've calculated all that. So you probably must have heard of Elon Musk and stuff like that. There are a lot of others like Jeff Bezos and even Richard Branson. Now they are all in this space. Now the thing is, in your hands are the future of kids who are not only going to be aspiring to be like an IAS officer, doctor, engineer, and the cliched, probably whatever the British education system pushed onto us to make us a cog in that big industrial machine. What we have now is opening up the vistas for young kids to go and explore. We've lost in the last 150 odd years of industrial education, we've lost exploration. The kid, that my son, like for example, he probably on a day-to-day basis will ask me about 500 questions. Papa was this, Papa was that, Papa was this, how does this happen, blah, 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 right? Now, maybe I was curious, I'm thinking, hey, this fellow shares my genetic profile, I probably must be curious as him, when I was a kid. But over a period of time, I'm not blaming you all, but through teachers and peers and everybody else, with parents and all, after some time I'm like cornered, my mind is all shut. So what do? They say, okay, go and do this exam. Fine. So we are already preparing our kids only to solve a question paper to max an exam. In my time it was like that. Now today when we're wearing an entrepreneurial hat, I find it very funny because if it is only to max the paper, then you give as you enroll the student, you give them the test first. Whichever subject they fail or do poorly, then you start training them backwards. You backward integrate that entire process, because the process as it is kind of, I don't know, right? But having said that, now the future, if the future is looking like that, there's a lot of tech and stuff like that.
Right, so.
Yes. Sorry, sir. Okay, fair enough.
You get more opportunity. I've got doing very well except Mr. Karma. There's a last round of questions, so please be prepared. So you go like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Karma will bring the drink. So Mr. Upadhaya, you've heard throughout yesterday and today, and through the feedback you must have got, about many of the ills of our system. Okay, I mean, Karma has just pointed out one or two. So can you the future with 21st century skills? 3 things. You're the secretary. Additional chief secretary.
First thing that I would like to do in the state of Sikkim, at least, if not anywhere else, is that to make our kids very, very aspirational. You know, somehow I have found that our kids are not having a kind of aspiration that I would like them to have. And the reason for that I am not able to understand. You know, they are happy with, very menial kind of jobs that they get or they are likely to get. You know, I have had the instances of children who have been sponsored under Chief Minister's Merit Scholarship Scheme, which is, I think, the one of its kind in the entire world perhaps, where that government takes up the responsibility of entire education in an elite school of India, dropping out in class 10 or class 9 or class 11. I can't understand this because I have come from an area and from a system, or all of you, I think, during my childhood. I mean, we have really struggled, and we didn't have so many facilities. And today, when we are letting somebody, dream about big things and go around the world, study in the best of the school, if he drops out, and that also on a very flimsy thing. For example, some girl getting married to somebody, in class after class 10. So the role of the child has to be really a person who has got big dreams. So I would like them to have a real big dreams. Number two, I would like our teachers to really make the children aware of the entire scenario, the global scenario that we are having or we are likely to have in the future. Somehow I find that because of our location in a corner, and a little bit of aloofness comes in, and the children, they are not able to think about the world as a whole. So they have to be made more cosmopolitan. They have to appreciate all the cultures. They have to be, appreciative of all the culture and languages and the needs and the kind of challenges that will be thrown on them when they step out of Sikkim. Because Sikkim's atmosphere is very protected, very, very peaceful, and a lot of care from the government and from the parents perhaps is there. So that would be the second thing. And the third thing I would like is that all the children in the government schools should be tech savvy. Tech doesn't mean only, you see, today only I was reviewing something about in my office about the schools, and I found that I was told to my great disbelief is that many of the heads of institutions, they are completely unaware of how to work on the computers. So our children should be made aware that 10 years down the line, what the world would be like. For example, it will be completely a mobile world. Things will be happening mostly on the mobile. Computers will become obsolete. Laptops will become obsolete. It will be a real-time exchange of information. One has to be very, very attentive all the time. One has to be very, very careful about what is happening around the world, and also face the challenges, because the world will be so competitive that anybody failing a little bit also will have a prospect of facing a difficulty in the job front or whatever business that he or she is doing. So I think these 3 things I would really like to see in our children, which will really make them a competitive, responsive, a very, very aware child who has got big dreams in life, and who is not deterred by small things like, I don't like the food of that place, I don't like the weather of that place, I don't like the language of that place. I don't want all these things to hear. Thank you.
Excellent. That's really nice. Meeta ma'am, given that we are all gathered here to discuss policy, give us a top-down view on what needs to change in the center-state format in school education. Should it still be center-driven, party, or if so, why? If not, then why? In a localized curriculum, a solution of the future is possible, or does it need to be nationally integrated?
So that is, in fact, firstly a huge question, and secondly, it passes beyond the level, the line that I don't cross, and I don't cross from policy. about center-state relations, that goes beyond my level of competence, beyond my pay grade, as we say. So, the politics of it is probably going to drive the solution. And I do like to talk at 30,000 feet and big picture things. But when we are sitting here together to find real solutions, then I would like to actually try to answer the spirit of your question, if I may, and duck the first part of it, the one political implications. And say that there are a few things that we have learned as teachers and learners. One, we have learned as teachers that stories really make a difference. Stories that connect us to our surroundings, connect us to learning. Stories that we used to hear from our grandparents. Many of us with white hair will still remember some of the stories that our grandmothers told us, which actually bring forth a solution. And I want permission, sir, I know this is a 3-minute round, to share one little story. A year ago, demonetization happened. And when demonetization happened, I was sitting in Bombay far away with my staff salary in my hands, the domestic staff salary in my hands, nothing I could do about it, etc. Came back into town by the time all the sources of transferring that money had gone, 2 days later. First thing I did on coming home was say, where is the garlic in the house, where is the onion in the house? I planted that. Growing up in different countries, growing up in urban areas, this is not a sensibility that we learn. We forget a lot of the learnings from the past, from our roots. And that local cultural learning is deeply valuable for the future. Because the future, and I won't waste time talking about VUCA, the VUCA world, the volatile world that is ahead of us, means us to be future ready for any solution, any problem, anything that comes to us. The future of our students is not going to be in doing everyday jobs that are repetitive. Technology will take care of the repetitive jobs. Our students will be the problem solvers of the world, the troubleshooters of the world. Ordinary jobs technology can do. We will have to solve for the extraordinary. And so our policy will have to design not just for the local, because that teaches us the first level of problem solving, not just for the national, because that teaches us how to solve for bigger problems, but also global, and I will agree with Karma, interplanetary. He has talked about his son, a little personal reference. My son designs space settlements. That is how his school allowed him to grow. In class 12, these children were designing space settlements. They got invited to Toronto, where I found that 1/3 of the student representation. There were 150 students from India over there. Class 5 students who have gone there with one teacher represented at a NASA Ames conference, a research conference. Class 6 students participating in poster competitions. What can policy do to support that? I thought of the children who were there, and then I thought of the children who did not have the support to go there. Scholarships for such opportunities, competitions that prepare them for the world of tomorrow. That has to be driven by policy.
Thank you. Very aspirational indeed. I think we're getting there. Usha Menon, is Jodo Gyan pedagogy style the only way out of the learning mess? Remember, there's a Khan Academy and many more methods in the marketplace. So a good teacher will always be able to teach. It is the not so good teacher that we want to facilitate. Your considered view on this? It's a very easy question for you, man.
You're not talking about Jodo Gyan method as such. But see, very often when an innovation is made, it gets connected to wherever the source of it is. So, but then there is a kind of a shift, and from one perspective to another, there is a name which goes along with it. And we are talking about, based on research, and I mean, I don't know that I should be looking at and comparing with academic or others. See, most of the approaches usually look at the final product of learning what needs to be there. mean, I could take simple, specific examples and discuss and talk about how do we make it accessible to children or to anybody who's learning. Breaks it down into its component sub-points and teaches those specific items. It based on an understanding about how to make the final concept acceptable. Now, what we are talking about is about construction of meaning, beginning to become the lived and meaningful experience toward the child and how you need to go through a tragedy. So it is like a scientific approach which can be discussed. And there are sometimes one theoretic basis, other which is open for discussion. Even what we are talking about is being continuously modified, changed, each experience, whether it's in Sikkim or other places. So there's a larger community which is being created with experience, whether here or in other places, where we are changing the perspective. We start from what is meaningful to the child and we go through a trajectory to reach the rigor of finally what is expected. Very often, see, I do believe that Khan Academy does fill a kind of an important gap which is there for even for many people who have learned it at one time, who want to brush it up. That's a very good resource. Whether it is a good thing for really experiencing and learning is a different question. And see, the main thing is the classroom culture and the discussion and the dialogue and the debate in the classroom is a very important source of learning. And when we have this whole individualized approach, we are really still following that old idea, beginning from Rousseau onwards, about how learning takes place. An individual. See, even a science or anything, any scientific community discusses, debates, changes, if you do this, if you see it in the class, how this specifically happens. Within this point, I will not go into it. But it is developing a classroom culture based on this whole idea, which is supported by research of the last 30 years about how learning takes place, beginning from there and building up here. And we believe that this is a kind of it's another framework. And historically, in all sciences, some things you have, whether a Newtonian approach, whatever, there is something, there's a framework which comes and which gives us a lot of leeway until we come and come to it. And I also wanted to, it's somewhere linked to it, I think we need to go. There's a lot of discussion about technology. I think we need to also be able to see the distinction between science and technology and whether it's possible to develop a scientific approach. A scientific approach which looks at the reasons why things work, what it is, and whether that kind of a scientific approach, which is at any other sector, including in the area of pedagogical skills, we check, we discuss. So once a community has been seeded, I think based on a very scientific approach, we can take, provided our goals are to develop usable knowledge.
Thank you. Vivek, in line with whatever has been just said, in the previous question, why would tech be important in the future of education, and especially in Sikkim? And do you think Sikkim is ready?
So, this is again a question on why should we think about ICT at all. And I think there are a couple of areas in which we can specifically discuss around why and how we can utilize technology. The first one is in terms of how do you assess systems, learning systems at different levels, and then how do you utilize that assessment information, how do you analyze and utilize it. Most of us here would have undertaken a road journey from October to Bangkok and would have seen the army cantonments which are there in Bhutia. I noticed one of them, 27 Mountain Battalion, and I want to say, in God we trust, rest we track. So it's a very important message. How do we track systems? How do we build these tracking systems, the information systems, which can actually provide us the reliable information on the quality of teaching and learning? And then how do we utilize that information? How do you take action on it? And I think technology can play a big role in doing that. Sikkim has already started on a path of developing these systems, and there is already some sort of information management system here. But obviously, there is an opportunity to improve upon that as well. And the second most important thing is to ensure that we are utilizing the information we are getting from the system to take action. As they say that just weighing the pig won't make it any fatter. So we have to make sure that it is put into action. So that's the first piece of it. I think the second piece of technology is around how do you base your actions on what is the evidence which is available in technology to improve certain specific areas. And one of the very specific areas is early grade reading, preschool intervention, which is known to really give you returns in terms of economic returns of kids who have undergone a 2-year early reading program versus kids who have not. So we did a World Bank study last year, and we found that for every rupee-1 which you invest in 2-year early reading program, gives you a return of about ₹25 when these kids grow up because of the cognitive development which happened during their early reading. And in terms of making sure that this early reading is driven by the age-appropriate pedagogy of activity-based learning, I think that's where digital tools can really help. Providing there are a lot of products which are coming to the market which can help kids learn much more personally with these digital tools. Obviously, with the internet and the teacher can really guide the classroom on how this should happen. But I think there is a way to really include technology to enrich the classroom much better than otherwise. So that's the second one. I think the third one is around again using systems and data systems to see if you can get some sort of policy directives out of these systems. So for instance, what sort of autonomy you should give at the school level. Some of it can come out from your information systems as well, which provide you a sense of where the communities are getting their information of the school. For example, the school management committees are there. So if there's an information system which provides some sort of information about the schools to the communities, you have a way to figure out from policy perspective how to engage these communities for better accountability at the school level. That's probably the third roundabout here.
Thank you. I think that's very interesting. So, Karma, can you pick up from where Vivek has left? And it would be important our quest for high quality environments that we are trying to do, education and ecosystem. What are the pitfalls do you see in all of this?
Okay. I was expecting the question curve, no sir. I anticipated to stop in middle, then again it was a googly sun. So very nice. So I think the pitfalls, right? So I wouldn't call it pitfalls, but generally what is lacking from on an entrepreneur's perspective, especially in education today, is the whole government, right? We have Honorable Chief Minister, everybody. The whole machinery now has figured out, and probably it is not a sustainable model where people are continuously seeking jobs, from the government, from anybody, including teaching and everything else, any other job. We want to move away from job seekers to job creators, right? So that's the big, I guess, the elephant in the room. There is only one way to do that, and that is through entrepreneurs. Government has a limited mandate to employ, the administrative and other executive task force that's required. The only way you can have large-scale mass employment and job creators is basically through the job creators, right? Entrepreneurs. Now, what are we doing to put that into the curriculum? Are our kids learning how to become entrepreneurs? Because we find that even once they pass out of college at a degree level, even the management, most people don't know how to structure a company. And that is a big black hole, because that is where most people keep falling into the void. And then you have there is this big tussle between, industry and academia saying, hey, you're not creating people fit enough to be employed. And on the other hand, the academia says, hey, you tell us, we have so many forums in which we can get together, especially things like in forums like this, where People get together, they discuss, and they just move on. But there is still a big gap. I, as an entrepreneur, when I bring somebody in, I still have to look at that individual as a blank template, and probably 1 year of my investment goes into trying to bring up to speed with the skills that is required. He has to unlearn most of the learning, and then he has to relearn. I'm sorry to say that in front of all the teachers. He has to unlearn most of it, and then he has to relearn the skills for the industry. Now, what a hack. I mean, if you taught that at 7, 8, 9, entrepreneur, what a company structure looks like, what is the role of a CEO, CFO, etc. And if you have an idea, you can go and pitch, you can get money. If you teach all of that, job done. I mean, as they come out of college, they are basically ready to take on the world. I think that is where the lacuna is, and that is probably one of the things that we can put in.
2 minutes, 52 seconds. Wow. Okay, we have the third round, and then the fourth round is, of course, your round, the house. This third round is, we try and do a little bit of, thinking through, okay? So, Mr. Upadhaya, in our quest for high quality education in schools, we have policy instruments that we take because what can they do? Why can't we give more autonomy to schools in Sikkim, especially government schools, and hold them accountable? What about issues like mental health, value education? These do not find adequate space in our learning systems. Can you briefly comment on these? And you being at the helm of the department, what changes you can specifically bring? So, 5 minutes.
I think the most relevant question of the day, as far as I am concerned, school autonomy is the first question. Why can't we give them more autonomy and make them accountable? I think this is a question which we have been debating very often, more often than not. We have been discussing this, and it doesn't apply only to the schools. I think it applies to every government servant. Today, if I ask myself, only myself, nobody else, that how accountable I am, the answer is, I'm afraid, is a very, very negative one. If I don't work at all, for example, I don't lose my salary. If I work very hard, I don't get extra salary. Yes. So the incentive to work in government system somehow is not there. More often than not, a government servant, when he takes initiatives, veers off the beaten track and takes some novel initiatives, he is punished, not rewarded. This is what has been happening. So, in a government system, the incentive to innovate, take a very different path, not very different, even slightly different, for the ultimate goal of having a very positive agenda. No personal agenda, no any kind of bad initiative. This thing, all with positive and good intention. It actually doesn't give any kind of reward to the person who takes it. So, autonomy again is linked to the same question. Autonomy can be given, but unless it is properly structured, the government system is designed in such a way that it is built on mistrust. I don't trust anybody. Nobody trusts anybody below him. We all have all checks and balances. We always doubt the integrity of the person, the intention of the person. So what happens in the process? The person is very defensive, very, very safe. He plays safe. Why should I do this? So what is the problem? So now this brings us to the question, then what should we do? Should we accept it? No, we should not accept it. I have been telling at my own level to my colleagues, to my contemporaries, to my seniors, even the politicians, that in government system there is no incentive to work hard. Therefore, we have to build the incentives. And if a person takes an initiative, not necessarily the autonomy, even if autonomy is not given, the school can do a lot in the present circumstances. See, there are so many school principals sitting here. If you want to do something new, some new experiment in the school, nobody stops you. You see? But the point is that if a person is doing something with a good intention, with a very noble objective, and in the process 70% he or she will succeed, 30% he may not succeed, he should not be given any kind of punishment for trying genuinely and failing. See, this is what is very important. So if we can ensure this through a set of rules or set of this actually brings the question of mindset change. There has to be a whole set of whole lot of change of mindset required in the government system to let the government servants take initiative, work, take innovative steps, maybe take a little different path. Of course, trying to fit into the system of checks and balances, but still there will be some kind of violations, some kind of deviations. So that thing is required. So autonomy per se is a great concept. It will bring a lot of positive things, but at the same time, in a government system, giving autonomy without a component set of very well defined in black and white responsibilities, accountability parameters is fraught with a lot of danger. Point number one. Regarding mental health and value education, I'm very glad this point has come. The only other day I was in Delhi in a national workshop on school education. They had 5 subgroups. I was co-chairing a group on value education with the Ministry's Additional Secretary, and HRM also came and spent considerable time with us, Mr. Prakash Javadekar, and there was a whole lot of discussion on value education. And I told them about what we are doing in Sikkim. And I'm very happy to share with the panelists here, because mostly all of you are from Sikkim, you know what we are doing. The steps that we are taking, little steps. For example, I would say a thing like, our Chief Minister famously says that, Hamro Nani Safal Matre Hoina Asal Pani Banao Parcha. Meaning thereby that a child should not only be made a successful professional, but also a good human being. So he always tells the students, the teachers, and we ensure that a lot of good things in Sikkim society, which I have observed as I have come from outside, are excellent things. So those things pass on to the younger generations. So value education, in case of Sikkim context, of course we are doing a lot of things, many things in the schools, but I am very happy to share that value education, we structured form we introduced last year, and we had a training for 150 teachers under SSA for elementary schools, and they were given a capsule of 2 days on value education, and we intend to repeat it. I am sure MHRD is going to come out with a set of guidelines on this. But if you ask me as a teacher, if I am a teacher, if I was a teacher, if I am a parent, and if I was a teacher, what value education I will give to my child? I keep telling all of you, you must have heard me in your schools and all around the schools. I tell the parents who assemble for various meetings that we have or functions that we have, please talk to your child every day on 10 minutes. This is the best value education that we can give to our children. If the parents talk to their children for 10 minutes on a daily basis, on a consistent basis, the family values, their experiences will be passed on to the children. And that can be the biggest value education a child can get. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure you will be doing something about mental health as well. Meeta, my mental. So, is this statement right from your point of view? Teachers are at the core of your thesis in imparting quality education now and forever. In fact, you are railed against tech tools. Is this correct, and if so, why?
I railed against.
Yeah.
I write a lot. Sometimes I don't even remember what I write.
Yeah, I can pull that out for you.
This feels as if I'm in Parliament. The madam is very good at that, the previous one. I have a dossier. Yes and no. In fact, this is...
No, teachers at the center of it.
Teachers are always at the center of everything. And every moment is a teaching and a learning moment. Undeniable truth. Like the sun rises in the east. That part of it is inviolable. And even into the future. What we call a teacher may evolve over time. And I'm bringing the technology aspect into it as well. Are we saying that, actually I have a little story to tell.
Yeah.
Don't count that in my 3 minutes. So I went to one of these very grand round tables, and it was genuine learning for everybody, I think, across the table. And there was this diet principal as well over there from Lucknow, I think. And she was it was about digital technology. And digital pedagogy is something that I'm trying to convince everybody to invest in. Because so far we have had ICT. The World Bank has these 299 studies. But what is evolving now is pedagogy that involves digital things. So the teachers, everybody sat in the room was talking about how we don't really have enough investment in IT and we're not doing enough in education. And this lady steps up and says, I actually had this teacher who sent me a WhatsApp message and said, I don't understand IT at all. I don't know how to do IT at all. And how can I come and attend your session? I found out on the website that you had an IT session coming and my name is not in that training. And I don't even know if I'll be allowed to come on that. And she says, this person is desperate for IT training and I cannot give her IT training. That principal was very worried. And I turned to her and I asked, this person has access to information on a website for training that improves their own life and capability, training that improves the life of their students and the region that teacher caters to. That teacher has found a way to access you, who has the ability to put you on the list, get the funding for that training and everything, has been able to create a persuasive argument and a direct argument with you, all using IT tools. And you're saying this person doesn't know IT. What is happening here is maybe we are trapped in older definitions of IT and technology and not using the new opportunities. So the British Council, for example, has now declared WhatsApp as its training tool. And when we also say technology, and I want to go back to one older definition. I'm going to borrow your spectacles for a second. Just for 1 second. Mine are also, sorry, I keep forgetting. This is the entry into old age. What is this if not technology? I could not do something needed easier for me. Something needed looking after, I keep forgetting to clean them. Something needed maintenance, something needed upgrading all the time. That is what technology does. It's as simple as that. We don't need to make it more complicated than that. I'm sorry, I've only answered half your question.
Okay, no, but very interesting. Okay, we use tech tools all the time, all of us. So that's important. Usha ma'am, your this button is never pressed. All right, Usha ma'am, can you describe what a school should be like, and in that a classroom for Jodo Gyan to thrive?
See, I would say when we are talking about Jodo Gyan, it is of course an approach about the way we have discussed. What would be needed is a thing where children are engaged with problems which make sense to them and which can also, which is not just paper and pencil but really integrated kind of problem solving which makes, which is meaningful to them. And many of the content areas to be integrated and to emerge from it, especially for the future. And then I think we are also talking about ICT. And I would say that there are the kind of 21st century skills which we require involve, the focus is no more on just information control. But after you get the information, how do you use it and which information to collect? Use your judgment to see which information is usable, which is the kind of resource. These are the kind of skills which are required. And to be able to make simulations, to be able to make, use the information to make problem, basically it's a much more problem solving approach, which is what is being facilitated by today's business. So very often, but this is the fact, this can actually grow from problem solving in a, where concrete and other materials are there and go further. Today there is a tendency for ICT to replace exactly what is there in the books. Usually most of the things, just put the things or make a video or a cartoon based on that and that is good. But as a person working in it, there are many times and I've seen, okay, we have done this far and now to go further it would be very nice if there was an application which can not replace what it needs to be done, which can actually extend it. So that kind of a really thought out, that kind of tools will be what will be used by you. usable and connected to use. Because there is enough evidence to show that if you learn things as a part of concrete problem solving in the context of use, and then may come to it as generalization, that is much more usable knowledge than some what is called very abstract thing, and then you say you go and use. This would also be applicable to what you use for Canada, I mean, with all respects to the effort which is being made, is the fact that learning about whether it is anything in a particular context and then seeing a generalization as a pattern gives you tremendous kind of power. It is like, you have a hand in you, it is like extension of that. You can use it anyway. It develops flexibility. See, that kind of a knowledge and flexibility and things you develop only when you do problems. So it is something where it is needed. We use ICT when there is a problem which you need that to be able to solve. You do other things where you have other things. So it is that kind of a problem solving approach rather than finding a particular answer or what is a kind of a solution. And that kind of an approach is what I would consider. So it would be taking examples from the nearby context and kind of a problem which makes sense to children and maybe with teachers also get to be involved. Like, I think it's so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, Vivek, this is a very long question, so you have to.
This is a long question, so you'll have to listen very carefully. Digital access and tech tools can lead to great misuse. Children in the 80s grew up playing in the outdoors. Advent of technology has led to children using handheld devices to play games such as Blue Whale on the extreme. How can we encourage the use of technology for productive and holistic learning? How does one inculcate value education, traditional knowledge, cultural connectedness through tech tools? How does one do that fine balancing act or find the middle path? And this is all contextualized to future of education.
Right. I think this is a tough debate to have, and this is not just a debate which we have in the realm of education, but it is a broader debate in the realm of information technology as it percolates into our lives anyway. And there is no hiding from the fact that technology has given access to a lot more about ourselves to a lot more players than was possible ever before, which is a boon as well as a bane. The question is about whose responsibility is it to safeguard ourselves from the potential misuse which can happen versus making sure that we are able to still harness the better parts of the technology and put it to our good uses. We see these debates in the context of databases which are there in India, in the context of games which you mentioned as Blue Whale, and then these are the same debates which exist in the realm of education as well. We recently had a model of education in the US called Art School, where they started a couple of schools in New York and California, a chain of schools. They are now consolidating again. And one of the things which they did was to actually start collecting every possible piece of information which is there in the classroom, starting from video recording of every activity which is going on to every interaction which is happening between teachers. And they hope that analysis of that data could probably help them predict future behavior. There's a recent investment which was made by a firm in a health band which reads the brainwaves of kids and gives immediate feedback to teachers as to whether kids are paying attention or is their brain underground. These are some of the horrifying kind of investments in technology which I see going forward. And I think it's difficult to put blame on one person or one set of school of thought to say that this is going to lead to a disaster. We have had issues like this in various parts of discoveries and moving forward in the world at all levels, even when it was technological progress or even when it was progress of industrial revolution, when we thought it would lead to different kind of changes. And it always comes to the responsibility of the users as well as the creators of these technologies to make sure that these are used responsibly. A good example is the hydrogen bomb which came and then how it is used. Very simple industrial revolution kind of a thing. You were using a nuclear technology to create energy and then there are disastrous ways to use it. So it's not just in the realm of technological progress where we have to ensure there is responsibility. It's in the realm of everything else which we have in life which is getting improved by technology. Very specifically in terms of some of the educational things, I think it's necessary to point out the basic issues of safeguarding and building systems which are much more secure from cyber attacks, which are much more secure from phishing, which are much more secure from any sort of untoward incidents that can happen. Making sure that there are parenting responsibilities in tracking what the kids are doing, the teachers' responsibilities in terms of tracking what the kids are getting exposed to. I think these are very generic principles which can be applied instead of putting technology itself as a villain and saying that we should stop that. Otherwise, I think we would never have had made the progress in terms of humanity which we have made so far.
Very well circumvented. Very specific question to you, and this is a question in your line of thought. How do we leverage AI and new tech to make our children smarter and future-proof them? Vocational jobs such as those in retail and of a salesman are likely to be non-existent in the near future with Amazon, Flipkart, etc. coming in. CBSE vocational curriculum needs upgradation. Given the context of Sikkim, how can we focus on green vocations such as solar engineers and water conservation specialists, which are going to be growing needs of the future? What would be a key societal progress indicator to measure this?
In the realm of artificial intelligence, machine learning, data sciences, probably one of, even he just touched on that, is basically accumulation and collection and analysis of data, right? So it's disrupting most of the jobs that's there, because I guess one of the incentive for education at the end of the day is to get a job. It's part of that parcel. I mean, in terms of why most people pursue engineering, doctoring. I guess not for everybody. It might for different strokes for different folks, but majority of the kids want to put their children through education schooling system so that their lives are better. I mean, better than they had. Especially if you go to the rural areas, they tell you the same thing. Now, having said that, artificial intelligence is going to disrupt lots. I mean, in terms of work, most of the things that can be automated will be automated. And also how learning changes. So the future of learning could be, Susan, can you just bring up that one? Yeah. So the future of learning could be more of augment, like today you're doing smart classes, right? I guess you're doing to an extent smart classes. One of the bigger artificial intelligence systems that you have is everybody carrying it in your hands right now, right? This is a very powerful artificial intelligence tool. If you press, you talk, it collects all the data, it gives you a voice, it synthesizes your voice, does the analytics, gives you a response. If you use Google Map, if you use Siri, your Echo, or whatever, I mean, whatever you have on Android, if you use that, that's all artificial intelligence. Kids are growing up with artificial intelligence today. So we have to keep that in mind. And if we have already introduced smart classes in school today, the future of education will look something like this. We'll have more of augmented reality, which at the later stage will relate into virtual reality. So you can see this. This is a learning system for a model, a human being. You don't need a cadaver. You don't need to cut them open. You can just see how this thing works, right? So it's easy to learn. All your parts you want to see, and these models are augmented reality models are basically like textbooks. You can see that it says it's basically a textbook. You can keep going over it again and again. Now the future of this is the tech has become such that you can have, if you buy the new iPhone 8, iPhone 10, augmented reality is now a part of it. Your Samsung, the new generation phones, all will come. And the future is, whether the teachers like it or not, students will be learning like this. So this is going to be part of that system. And I guess teachers will be able to participate in a much more better format with things like this. So this is disrupting definitely. It is not for alarm for teachers, but it is a better way to interact, better way to, I guess, learn, right? So that is what is coming down the pipe.
I didn't realize you had been all ready. Okay, now
Sir,
open it to the floor. One question to each panelist. So,
We have to start with
Mr. Upadhaya. Who will take on Mr. Upadhaya? Nobody? There.
When you said dream big, I'm always wary of size. I'd much rather talk of quality than quantity, especially when we talk about something like a change system like education. So I think we might need to qualify the term, the phrase dream big. Otherwise it sounds as though when you dream, it has to be big in size. I'm an English teacher, so I guess I look at words too. The second thing that struck me was the irony of it, and I'm not sure you meant it, but for some of us who weren't really clued in, it might have seemed like if government teachers are seen as government workers, people in the government, and they are seen as skiving off, and they are not to be really trusted enough to have autonomy, and yet they are the people who are supposed to teach the children value education. I thought that was an ironic juxtaposition. Thank you.
Interesting ones. Dream big, basically what I hinted was that, in the context of Sikkim, since I have been meeting a lot of children, I have been meeting students and job seekers who invariably come to my office, and here and there I keep hearing from. You see, Karma also mentioned that, the system of seeking job from the government is not sustainable. Neither in Sikkim nor any place in India or any place in the world perhaps. So dream big basically meant that, I would like our children. See, government jobs will always be there, and people who will be, they are becoming more and more competitive. So those who are very competitive, they will qualify in any case. And there are good government jobs. I love my job. I mean, it's not I don't love my job. I love my job, and this is a fiercely competitive thing to come into IAS. So those who will be competitive, they will qualify. But the point, the dream big means, they should think of doing things bigger, even at the cost of going away to a very unfamiliar location as an entrepreneur, as a person who is in a salaried job, a place which is very different in language and culture and all. Because in the context of Sikkim, as I mentioned earlier also, Sikkim being a place very peaceful, literally a heaven on earth, literal heaven on earth, where touchwood there are no problems, so to say. So people feel so secure inside Sikkim, and then they don't want to venture out. So even at the cost of getting a job lower than what they actually deserve or they could have aspired for. So that was the intent behind what I said. Dream big. Think of bigger things in life. Maybe anything, Bigger means, think of being a leader in every respect. Secondly, regarding that, the other question regarding, what was the question? Sorry. No, autonomy and
teachers.
Trust.
Trust, yes. You see, it is not that I don't trust or in the government we don't trust anybody at all. It is not that. But there is an element of inbuilt mistrust. If a person takes an initiative, since I work in government and I have worked for a long number of years, I can speak in a very authoritative way. If you take an initiative, the first thing that comes to the superior's mind is why he has taken this, why he has done this. Is there a motive behind this? Is he trying to help somebody whom he knows, he or she knows? This is a kind of thing that government suffers from. And this system we have read from Britishers, where everything they never trusted Indians, so they gave us that system, and we don't trust our own fellow beings. So this is what has happened. People don't trust each other in terms of not 100%, but yes, over a period of time, yes, you know the person, you can find out from him what actually he is trying to do, and he's a genuine person. But again, as I said, there are layers and layers of control in government. It is not that only my principal reports only to me or only to a particular officer, or a teacher reports only to a principal. No, there are multiple layers. So what happens is that, unlike in a private sector, so even if your immediate superior may be happy with your work or he trusts you, the person who is senior to him or parallel to him may not trust him, the person who is taking the initiative. That why he is doing, again the question will come, because he is not directly supervising, but he will have that suspicion, why he is doing that? What is the motive behind that? Is he benefiting somebody or himself or whatever? So this is what I actually meant. So it is not that trust is not there, but if you ask me a very pointed question, is there 100% trust? Answer is no.
Second question from the floor to Meeta.
No, but my just an observation, and on a holistic level in Sikkim, regarding to Sikkim, if sometimes when we trap the students inside the classroom, we forget what is outside, immediately outside, just on your neighborhood or just outside happening, which is nature. And since we live in a very dynamic nature, where the intelligence is coming, the AI is coming, the Martians are coming, or we are going to Mars, or how we are going to be valuing our neighbors, or how we are going to value our environment, and everything, those the intangibles and the tangibles, which are all happening at such a fast, random pace. Is there a way in which we can open up the classrooms, or open up the minds, and open up the whole education system where it becomes more interactive with, maybe there are a lot of answers which are just there in nature, which are yet to be discovered or found out, and maybe sometimes we just trap, and this whole thing about valuing, the whole thing about just stressing out those young minds. So sometimes we just forget that there's so much of that needs to be done, or needs to be found out, and sometimes it's I don't know how you might act.
Thanks.
To state a fairly radical position, one thing that truly troubles me about the education system is the existence of walls, the four walls of a classroom. So I totally agree with that. There is so much more that is happening. But of course we need buildings, but we can have much more interesting architecture first at one level. That includes a lot of fluidity. Nature, yes, but again going back to the point of assessments, the way we have designed our system to be a very linear system. And our linear system gives us very few chances. So how many times can you take the IAS exam? A maximum of 3 times. Is that right? 3 or 4 times. Each of us has, and when do we need to take the most important exams of our time? Exactly when you really want to fall in love. When your body is growing, when your hormones are raging, when you have no idea what you're going to do with your life, when parental expectations are beginning to pile up on you. The worst point of time, and then you have this exam that you can never take again. Like one short chance in life. My deepest appeal to policy is open it up, give them many more chances. You want to take this exam at 35, it's okay. Take that at 35, you can rebuild your life at 35, 45, whenever you want to. You're 6 years old and brilliant and you can take the class 10 exam, get it over and done with. Why is it just because somebody said that before? Open up, learning will open up anyway, including nature, including everything else. There's very little to say. But if we just didn't put that pressure of assessments, maybe we would be in an easier place.
Sir, because you mentioned Mars, can I finish? No. Encourage and push is curiosity, sir. If you do that, then the teaching stops. Then if you encourage curiosity, they become better. And they will be equipped for everything, including nature and Mars.
Yeah, I think it's just a simple thing to be able to ask questions openly without that fear.
Exactly. That's the exact point.
It's something like what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, it's
Asking questions without fear. All right, thank you very much.
Next question to Usha. Teaching in classrooms. Teachers. Yes, Vivek.
A lot of discussion here has talked about quality education, the future of education. I'm having a difficulty reconciling the nurturing of quality, creativity, the things that we talk about. And I think it's these young people, where if you can nurture that, the capacity for them to be leaders, entrepreneurs, job creators, all that's going to be there. But then the sad thing is that again, you see a lot of these young minds being channeled into these coaching centers. And then they get driven off at the prime of their school life. Class 10, they finish and they're into coaching centers. 12 hours they're coaching to get into competitive exams. And so we have this barrier of this admissions into college, universities, where only the 99% or 98% get into the top colleges. So how do you reconcile a higher level education system that has this barrier, if I can call it a barrier, and then changing your education system to create the next generation of job creators and innovators and scientists or whatever it is? I think that's the, I don't know whether it's a dilemma or how do we solve this problem?
So you've got a problem to solve, you all want.
Those are solved on the ground. But one can think about it. Basically, I think what one has already said. Yes, one, I think the kind of assessment which we have, as long as that continues to exist, the feasibility, the space for really doing something meaningful will be very, very restricted, to say the least. So that is there, and that is where I think what is needed. Every workshop when we go, we ask the teachers, well, how do you understand with quality education? And I have been very pleasantly surprised to say invariably teachers say which can be used in real life. You know, so that there is that sense and the feeling among the thing. They are relating quality to something which is usable in real life. And you know the work, circumstances under which they work, they are not able to do that. So I think maybe there must be a people's movement, I feel, where people should demand what is this happening, what is the kind of the thing. I think an awareness, maybe not sitting here, there are people, an awareness about what education can be. Maybe sometimes you need to have some kind of an image of what it can be in order to motivate people. You have to see even as an example, what, okay, children can think like this, do like this. And so even if you have, I think, 10 schools in Sikkim, where we can show, look, this is what a child can do when they're given the thing, just 10 schools. That can then maybe inspire people to start a movement and people will be ready for it. Because now they think there's nothing in the textbook, in the homework, which means nothing is happening. But they can know that maybe some month more is happening. We are talking about ICT. It can be used to communicate with the parents about the fact that even if there is nothing in the home, notebook which is being brought home, is for this lot of things happening, or very many other ways. I think once we are clear that this is what we want, I think a clarity of purpose. If there's a clarity of purpose, I think a lot of solutions will emerge, and they will be from the schools, from the things. So of course, it's not that you can change it in one go. I would say 10 schools, or 5, I mean that's not in some number of schools where we are really doing, where assessment is changed, other things are changed, and the whole thing, and with support. Teachers also sitting together, we are all human beings. None of us, just because we sit together and 10 people talk to that doesn't mean that we are the solution. But it's a process. We take help from wherever and try and create it. I think then we will know what is the pathway forward. And it will certainly involve connecting to problems earlier. It's not only for schools, even our engineering colleges. How many of our engineering colleges actually take up a small problem outside, which will really make them much more, usable kind of a knowledge. Unfortunately, the written word, the thing has such a kind of a power over real life kind of problem. And that is what is information. ICT is one of the big things, is that we don't need to spend our time to do just searching for information. Like the way earlier mathematics was meant in order to write the numbers one below the other and add the digits and find the answer. Today, people use calculator, spreadsheet. What you need to do is people who can design better calculators, who can design better things. So the nature of knowledge which we require has changed. It's not what was there in the earlier time. And are we ready to take up to that? I think that's what I mean.
Okay, thank you.
So I want to know what is the difference in qualified and non-qualified entrepreneur? What makes a qualified entrepreneur different from non-qualified entrepreneur?
Unqualified entrepreneur. There's not, in terms of entrepreneurship, there's nothing that you can qualify or you can unqualify. I think the entrepreneur is the person who's actually crazy, who's mad, right? You have to be crazy, you have to be mad to be an entrepreneur, because you are practically most of the time swimming against the tide. You are disrupting the status quo. That is an entrepreneur. You are taking risks where everybody wants to take the safe road. As Upadhaya sir was saying, hey, no, I don't want to do ye mera job nahi hai, I just want to do my this thing and play safe. So that person is not an entrepreneur. So the entrepreneur is fellow who's dreaming, we will send people to Mars. You get what I'm saying? His logic is pretty simple. We all came from the stars. If you believe evolution, Big Bang, we are all stardust. So we will go back to the stars. So that is one of the process there. So that is how an entrepreneur thinks. There is no qualified and unqualified. Now, you have people even at the village level. For example, the caretaker at home in the village, he's also an entrepreneur. He teaches Muda, like that, Madal, blah, 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 he makes money, right? So he's an entrepreneur by himself. Even a farmer, agriculturalist, he sells his produce in the market, organic. That fellow is an entrepreneur. He's taking risk, because the risk is what? You don't know what nature will provide, whether you get good rains, etc., etc. 20 different variables, right? But finally, whatever produce he gets, he sells it for a little bit more premium of the amount of effort that's gone in. He's happy with it. And that, at that level is that entrepreneurship. There is no qualification or disqualification. If anybody says, I am qualified to be an entrepreneur, I want to say that, because nobody gives out a certificate. And by the way, the best entrepreneurs who make you big don't even go through college. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, etc. You can, those people, you know, most probably, as you write, maybe you know that they haven't even finished college. So there is no right and wrong. The capacity to take risks and make mistakes. Please, if you can teach your kids how to make mistakes and make mistakes fast, right? You fail fast. In the whole entrepreneurial journey, you have to fail, but you have to fail quickly. You can't fail like when you're 70, then you're dead, you're finished, your entrepreneurial journey is finished. But if you find a way that you can fail fast, right? Give yourself a time, make a prototype your idea, take it to market, and if you see traction, somebody's buying, and says, yes, the idea is good, it works, you invest a little bit more money or get more friends to invest, and then you grow. Right? If it doesn't, then you close it. You can't just say, oh no, because now I spent like 2 months on it, I want to continue to 70 years. So if you have a process, if you have a faith in yourself to fail fast, and if the teachers can teach that to the kids, I think that is one of the most beautiful things that we'll ever do. And entrepreneurship will come from there.
Thank you.
Failing fast.
Thank you. Two minutes to Vivek.
To you. My story. So it was great being here for the last 2 days and really learning from a lot of people sitting on the dais as well as people I got a chance to interact with. Given that my area of work is technology and education, I think one thought which I do want to leave the teachers here with is that it really is something which you should try and experiment with and see how it makes your life easier. There are a number of demonstrations which happened yesterday and today as well, and probably those of you who are part of Equip see what kind of activities you can introduce in the classrooms. Just think about how it can be done slightly more easily with a little bit of tech tools. If you have to give a question to the classroom, some sort of a game, see if you can use a small app called Kahoot for kids to answer. See if you can play a small video for them to see and react to it. Because those are the things which you start with, and that's where all the familiarity with technology comes in, rather than fearing from that. So those are the things which I want to leave you with. It's not a Frankenstein monster. It's something which really changes the way you think about, and the more creatively you think about it, the better it becomes. And you are the guys who create magic, as was told yesterday. There's nobody else who can replace that. So even with technology, you are the people who can convert technology into magic. Otherwise, it's never going to work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We close the session. Thank you very much. Big hand and applause to the entire panel. Thank you all very much.